Okay, well, the stream seems to be cursed. There's always something that's cutting it short or starting it early. So on Wednesday, it cut off. I don't know what was happening. We moving along fairly well, and then it got close to 11:30, and I got kicked off, and then it sort of came back, but um, yeah. Anyway, I apologize for that. I can't apologize. I don't know what happened. The internet decided that it didn't want to stream this anymore, and so it stopped, and people left because it just disappeared, and then it sort of came back a little bit later. So I'll try again today. We'll continue to work on the lunar module ascent stage, and maybe these little astronaut guys. We'll see. This is the standing on the moon one. So I don't know. These are the sitting in the capsule ones. They're just kind of doofy looking right now, but that's about as good as they're going to get. So they're there. And I guess today, other than maybe messing around with the standing on the moon astronaut guy, I have to tackle the windows because unless I start on the descent stage, basically just abandon this for a while, defer it. I can't get anywhere with finishing this, putting these together and finishing the seams and priming and painting and just attaching these little bits to it. I can't do any of that until I put the windows in, and those have been a real challenge. But I've been practicing. Different, even that seemed to work. Different adhesives. And this is the technique I'm going to use. I'm going to use the brush on cement on the inside of the window, just the frame around it only, and then hopefully get the clear plastic window on it without smearing it. And if it looks like it smears, then I will need to anyway. One thing about this, and maybe I'll test it again, is that I can actually let the cement kind of dry. It looks like the surface is dry, but it still adheres. But anyway, I can't do anything more until I get the windows in. So I have to do the best I can to make that happen. So I'm using clear plastic from takeout container tops because the plastic that came with the model, there isn't very much of it. And if I mess it up, it's gone and that's it. But this is pretty much the same stuff. And I happen to have a fairly good supply of it. So I'm going to cut out the pieces that are fairly flawless. Okay, this is not like the highest quality material in the world, and it comes sometimes with little writing on it, and little recycle stuff. And down here there's bubbles, but this section here is pretty good. So why not just start cutting this up? Huh. Okay. Yeah. I have to stay impressed by the quality of the filter on the microphone because this is making a lot of noise, a lot of really annoying noise as I'm cutting it. And you're not hearing any of it, which is good because it's just really pretty annoying. Yeah. Okay. Keep it on screen. There, now I've got a piece of plastic that there are sections of it that are actually pretty good. They'll work. They're fairly clear. I should really clean them carefully before I use them, though. Yeah, there's like little dimples and stuff in them. I'll have to work around that. But there's a section here that's good, and a section there that's good. So I should be able to get at least one. I should be able to actually be able to get both windows out of this piece if I choose it carefully. Well, it's not like I can't get more of these. So I'm gonna try to clean it thoroughly because it's try to get it as clean as I can before I start trying to actually do the real thing with it. The plastic that came with the kit is pretty flawless. So it's really pretty good. But this, take out container box tops, just manufacturing quality is not. Let's just say the tolerances are pretty low. But as a material for the windows, yeah, it's cleaning up pretty well. Okay, now, as I said, I've for part of this, I'm actually going to end up wearing, I think, some nitrile gloves because I don't want to get fingerprints all over it. But I'm not to that point yet. Okay. Yeah. Let's do some things. Brush this way. This is the beast. These are the holes into which windows need to be applied somehow. And what I've found is that if I take a piece of this tape, I practiced this. This actually, I have done this several times. It actually works, which is kind of always surprising. If I can get these off so I can see close up, the trifocals are not the easiest thing to work with. If I tape over the window, even putting this tape on is kind of a pain. So you can tell that putting the window in is not the easiest thing in the world. I'm going to turn it around. Now it's blue, right? This corner here poses a challenge because it goes vertical really quickly. So this corner has to have the point cut off. But what I can do here, since there's tape on there now, is that I can use this fine pen and mark the outside of the edges of the window. And take the tape off. I have what the window's supposed to look like. And you can see that it is a scalene triangle. This side is longer than that side. The template that came with the kit made it an isosceles triangle. That wasn't good because that isn't what it is. And I'm trying to find the best piece of plastic here. This has some little scratches on it. Here, right here is a good thing. So then I can tape this onto the plastic like that. Actually, it goes right up to the edge. I can do this very efficiently. Okay. You want to cut around the outside of it. I need to leave enough around the edges so that it covers the edge. You can always make it smaller after I cut it, but I can't make it bigger. So I'm going to make it a little bit on the large side. And the other thing I learned is that down at the point here, the bottom point, is I need to leave a tab. What I mean is like an extended piece of it. Fairly large extended piece of it that I can grab onto with the tweezers. It isn't going to show because it's on the inside, but it is an essential component because otherwise, as I'm trying to put this in, as I'm trying to attach this, there's nothing to grab onto. Okay, so this is roughly the shape I want now. Okay, and I'm just going to leave that tape on there. So which one would I do? This one, right? So let me practice. I'm going to practice putting it in. I'm going to clean it one more time before I do that. So the deal is I grab it here at an angle on the tab, and then I need to get it to just set there like that. Here I am practicing. Yeah. And then I don't want it to move. Okay, I think, no, there's a little flaw in the plastic, but I can do anything about that. I'm actually going to, I don't know. I mean, Do I want to mess around with another one? There's a little bubble in the plastic. So I don't know. Okay, well, I know this will work. I'm going to cut out another one. I still have the template here. Stick that. Those are scratches. How did those get scratched? Did the paper towel scratch this? Really? Let me see what this other one's like. Okay, I'm going to save that and clean this one. Let me just take it out. So I've got, if I make them like this, like the one that I cut out, which is there on the paper towel. You can see it. I left a little blue tape. That one will work, and it's got a tiny little bubble flaw. I don't know if that's all there is. I'm going to cut this plastic out too. Throw it on the floor. Keep your work surface tidy by just throwing things on the floor. And then come back later and clean it up, right? I have another one of these. It's a really big one. I'm going to take a look at that too. I mean, if I'm going to do this, I might want to, use the best quality, cheap, useless plastic I can. This is a good recycling thing. A good recycling use of this plastic. Well, that's not all that great. So let me look at the other one that I've got. This is a really big one. Oh, actually. No, what the heck? Let's just cut this. I'm going to cut this one out too. And I've got a lot of material to work with. To be able to find a good piece of it here somewhere. Yeah, this one comes complete with huh. This has got a pattern printed into it. Huh. Weird. Okay, well, not going to go anywhere with that. Look at this again. I'm just going to use this. Yeah, I can't finish unless it gets started. So if this works, it'll be a minor miracle. If it doesn't work, then I'm not sure what'll happen. Okay. I mean, I really don't. I'm just going to try to make this work. Put cement just around the inside of the frame here. And then I'll let it set for just a little bit. I'm reaching for a glove. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put it on this glove. The reason I'm doing this is that once it's on there, assuming it adheres, okay, when I put it on, when I touch it to the cement, that it adheres. I'm going to want to press on it to make sure it's setting. Really hope this works because, I just really hope it works. Didn't stick. Stan, when I tested this earlier, it stuck. But it's not. It's just not. It's not even. It's not sticking. I'm confused. No, no adhesion. Hmm. This, but no one else. This is really baffling. I really thought I had it, but okay. I'm gonna. This is a little bit scary because the cement on there is wet. So if this slides around, it's going to be a problem. Well, if it stays on, It will have been a success. We'll see. It looks okay. I mean, there's a little bit of a flaw here and there. I don't know if I don't know what that is. Well, it's not perfect, but it's a window and it's attached. And I imagine if it looks like a little bit of the cement got on there just here. I can't tell. I don't want to mess with it. Okay. I'm going to just say leave it alone and do the other side. Okay. If I can get this to work, if this ends up working, it'll be a good thing because then I can move on with the rest of it. I'm a little bit disappointed. There's a bubble in the window and a little bit of a flaw on the top, but it's as good as I can get it. That's all I can say, is that it is as good as I can get it. That's a B minus. That one, that window's a B minus. If I can get to a solid B on this one. Mm-hmm. Some sacrificial plastic here. I think I'm going to use this here. This was, I don't know. This looks. It's like right here. Actually, if I can take the tape off, let's see what this looks like. I am trying to find the best piece of this. This is good right here. Okay. No, on the floor. Be right back. Silent here for a moment. Take the tape. As I attempt to take the tape template off of the plastic window without scratching it off the pieces. Why is taking tape off turning into a problem? Because I don't know. Everything about this is a problem, I guess. There we go. Great. There's some ink all over it. Me practice putting this in. All of my practice has been on the other side, because that when I first started working on this, the side that I just put on was the hard one. This one was easy, and I haven't played with this side for a while. So let's find out if it's still easy. I don't know. Easier anyway, maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it's not easy. Maybe the other one was the easy one. Okay. Well, let's try it. Let's see if I can make this side work. If it sticks, if it holds, it'll work. Now there's windows. There's windows in the lem. And all they need to do is like not fall off. Okay, the next step. I really am ticked off about that. There's a little. I might try to. I don't know. Can you see it up there in the upper corner? There's this like white spot there. They're not perfect. I'm not sure I can do better. I don't want to start over. I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it okay. I'm going to let that set for a while. But the next step is before. Well, I need to mask them. I need to very carefully mask the windows, because this is going to get spray painted with a primer and then spray painted at least one, maybe two coats of a finish coat. Well, the way this model sits is like this. So that flaw is going to be essentially invisible unless you rotate the whole thing, and there's no reason to do that. Anymore. I'll need one later. I'll need to like push against the back as I'm putting tape on, so that when I tape it, it doesn't push the window off. Is there a gap there? This is really right on the edge. No. Okay, well, that's okay now. And it didn't cause a problem on the front. All right. Well, now there's like pieces of plastic, and it looks like there's windows, and it'll do. Yeah. So this is going to need. I'm not going to mess with this right now. It needs to set. It needs to set long enough for me to not pop the windows out when I put masking on it. So I'm not sure how long the stream is going to go today. There's nobody in chat, so maybe because I got popped off of, I don't know, maybe because I got popped off on Wednesday, I've been abandoned. Maybe that's what happened. But so here are the pieces of the lem. There's some clear plastic. It's a used glove. Here's an official Dyson Dungeons coffee mug. Need to make a little bit of an effort here. Clean up the work surface. Throwing trash on the floor. I will get to that later. Yeah, let me go back to the astronaut here. The painting the gold on the faceplate here has been a real challenge because the gold paint sucks. When I've used it before, it's been like putting tiny little dots or edging. It's an embellishment on armor. So it's been like little dots for rivets or little scrolls and things like that. But on this surface, it's uneven. It's supposed to be like a mirror polish. So what I'm going to do is, I can't really mess it up. I'm going to get this. This is 3,000 grit paper. Gloss paper. I'm going to take a piece of it, and I'm going to attempt to. I'm going to make an attempt to polish the surface, the painted surface. This should be fine enough that it shouldn't take the paint off. If it does, well, there's always more paint. I'm going to rub at this and try to get the lumpiness out of it. I said I can't make it any worse because it's not very good. Doing this, and I am there. I just rubbed some off there. It's not adhering very well either. Um, I'm try. I'm going to try a different paint. This just isn't working. I'm actually going to take it off. I'm going to take the paint off of this because it's coming off anyway. And I'm going to use a different paint. It'll be shinier. It's called polished gold. It's a little less orange, but this didn't work. Okay, I mean it didn't work, and fortunately, I can do a do-over, and I can do that because the paint is coming off pretty easily, even though there's a primer underneath, and it didn't adhere. So I will say that this particular gold paint, didn't work on the astronaut guy. And I am cleaning it off. It's a little tedious, but it's something. And what can I do? Need to talk about. I was talking about humanoid robots. So it was interesting, that my curmudgeon opinion. This is my old guy curmudgeon opinion, is that the effort to make humanoid robots. It's like, oh, look, that robot can take a step and it didn't fall down. It's like, why are we thinking that that's a really huge improvement? You just spent like $4.5 million, right? And a bunch of engineering time, maybe even more. It might have even been more expensive. Okay. Millions of dollars and thousands of hours of engineering time so that this thing that sort of looks like a humanoid, it's got two legs, can stand up on two legs and walk one step without falling down. And that's good for what? Well, it was really good for the people who were, getting the money for it. They did okay, but it's not very good. So that's my curmudgeon opinion. My curmudgeon opinion was that the audio animatronic Abraham Lincoln that Disney made way back in the 1960s was probably just as good as anything that's come since in terms of humanoid robots. But I was also reading an article. Here's the butt about this, that if instead of trying to make a humanoid robot that could walk and move its mouth sort of, but basically just go, but not having really good lip movement and all of that, because that would take even more hundreds of little actuators to try to do it. And to what point, what purpose? To what purpose other than, oh, it has a facial expression now. Okay, that was worth another $25 million. But this is the butt here, and not like the butt of the joke or your butt, but as an alternative is prosthetics. Okay. Now, if all that time and energy and money had gone into the development of prosthetics, say that would have been a good use, because what you want is you want to restore as much function to an individual as possible. and some of the prosthetics are really pretty amazing that way. But so instead of trying to get, a robot to, oh, look, it flexes its fingers, okay, a prosthetic that allows somebody to manipulate objects would be, that would be okay. But I'm still going to be a huge curmudgeon and say that trying to make life-like humanoid robots is a huge waste of time and money when those resources could be going to something like purposeful and useful. Okay, well, now this gold paint is no longer on there. I need to touch up the helmet. I put some gray wash on this, and this guy is walking on the moon, so everything's going to be dirty. So at some point, I'm going to be practicing with the gray wash, light gray wash, and kind of going from light to dark, because of all the moon dust on it. But I've got other things to do. So there, now the faceplate is mostly not gold anymore. I got almost all of it off. And I'm going to get a different color gold and see if it is any better. The problem with it is that it doesn't flow. Okay, it's really thick and gummy, and I tried to thin it, but that didn't work. It didn't work any better. So let's see what else I've got here. You can actually put brass on it. Brass would actually maybe look okay too. But bright brass might work. Keep that out. Get a color chart. It's a real visor on the Apollo model, on the Apollo astronaut. Okay. I mean, it's supposed to look mirror-like, right? But it was, in fact, gold-plated like that. But it was really kind of a dark color. So I'm thinking that the polished gold would be way too bright. It's actually a little greenish as well. So this gold was actually pretty close to the color that it should have been, but doesn't flow. So I'm going to get my color chart on here. Okay, well, yeah, I curmudgeoned there. That's it. That was as much curmudgeoning as I'm going to do. Actually, the brass and the bright brass actually look better than the gold for its purpose. Now, I'm becoming indecisive here. It's just. The decision is going to be which one of these two flows better. Because at this point, I don't think it's the color so much, because they're all pretty close, But I think it is whether or not I can get it to be smooth. Well, I got the windows in them anyway, and if they hold well enough that I can mask them, and the masking is really important because otherwise they'll be ruined and I can't fix them. I won't be able to fix them. So in doing this, I'm going to be putting on my head magnifiers so that I can get the edges of the visor of the helmet. I want the edges of the visor of the helmet to look okay. I'm just going to squeeze out some of this. That's the brass. You can't see it because it's over here. Mm-hmm. Put some paint on the model and see how it goes. As you've seen, if it doesn't go well, I can just take it off. I'm going to use the brass. I hope this works because I think this will look. Silent here for a moment as I do highly detailed, hand not shaking terribly badly, painting around the edges here. The other brush. I mean, this isn't going badly, but it isn't as easy to control as the tiny. I'm going to see if I can get the brush marks to disappear. What I was hoping is that it would level better than this. But what's going to happen here is I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to put a second coat. Not perfect, but it's better than it was. And the color is pretty good, actually. I'm going to try something, though. I'm going to get do a thing here. I'm testing the bright brass as well. I don't think the color is as good, but I think, and it doesn't cover that well. Okay. The thing is that it doesn't cover. But one thing I want to maybe, I chose wisely by using the brass paint. Wondering how this would look if I put a little bit of the bright brass over the top of the brass. I'm going to let that dry and then test it here. And it's just a wondering thing. So if you ever watched, 1960s cartoon shows, the adult cartoons, the Flintstones and the Jetsons, there were all sorts of robots on the Jetsons. Okay. But in the future, they were smarter in the future, apparently. They didn't make them humanoid, they made them functional. Okay. So in Rosie the robot, their maid robot, not as in made up, but as in MAID, made, their maid robot, didn't try to walk bipedally. Why? Why take all that time and energy and potentially a disaster? She just rolled around. Why not? That was a good it was an effective form of locomotion. It worked just fine. So apparently, in the future of the Jetsons, they learned enough not to try to make robots just look like humans just to do it, because why not? But they made them functional. So I just have to say that's a lesson that we need to learn, is if you want a robot to do something, then make it so it does that, so it's functional. If you make it like a human, okay, which can do a lot of things, that's part of it, is the multifunctionality of humans. But as a robot, it might mean that it can't do anything particularly well. Like, it does everything. We're mediocre. It does everything, but it's not very good at it. Yeah. Well, there's windows on there. They haven't fallen off. Not yet, anyway. So we'll just keep waiting for that. I'm going to try this brass paint here. Putting bright brass on top of the brass. And it doesn't do anything at all, really. It's just kind of, it was worth a try. I was just trying to make it a little shinier, but it didn't really work. So how does this look? I'd say without the head magnifier, it doesn't look too bad. With the head magnifier, there are flaws like around the edges. So I am going to put a second coat on it, but I want this to dry thoroughly before I do that. While I'm waiting for that to dry thoroughly, I'm going to touch up the helmet, because what I managed to do when I was painting the rest of this, like the gloves and the boots, is I managed to get a spot of paint on the top of the helmet, and I needed to take that off, and then it's flawed. So I've got this very white paint, and I'm just going to touch up the helmet. The Walking on the Moon helmet was actually fabric covered. So this paint is kind of viscous as well. It's going to leave some brush marks, but in this case, the texture it leaves will actually be fairly authentic because the helmet itself was made of fabric. Walking on the Moon astronaut figure has a camera and some. Seriously, I don't know how many times I do that. It's like, oh, where can I grab this? Oh, I know. Let me grab it right where the paint is wet. Mm-hmm. Let me just touch it right there. It's almost as though my fingers do that on purpose. Really. Um, I should feel a real sense of accomplishment today in that I got windows in, and they're not too bad. One of them has kind of a flaw in it that is really hard to see unless you know where you're looking. And in the way this is going to sit, it's it's going to be mostly unnoticeable, especially when this is like closed. When this is closed in like that. Um, but those need to be masked, as I keep saying, and I can't do that until I know that they're firmly in set. So I think I'm going to mess around with this astronaut guy for a while. Its boots are painted. I'm going to stop grabbing it. Okay, stick its feet. I'm not going to mess with its feet until I put the dark gray wash on. When I put the dark gray wash on, the light gray, what am I saying? The light gray wash, the kind of wash I used on the backpack that makes it look dirty. Because when you're on the moon, you get pretty dirty. That light gray wash, as I layer it on from thin to thick, yeah, it'll go on boots, but I don't need to do anything with the boots now. What I need to do is do some of the detail up on the front. So the painting instructions say paint the strap light blue. No, that's the strap for the camera here. There's nothing light blue on an entire astronaut suit. It just isn't, right? The straps are actually a very light tan color. These paints piled up here. I'm going to put some away because it's just they're just in the way. Um, use chainmail silver. I might use this. I'm not going to use this. These are like little metallic colors. I might use those like on the camera. Put this on. I want to see the detail better. I need to try to decide. I need to try to decide how to make this totally inauthentic astronaut look okay. So there's some connectors there. There's the straps. There's the camera. Those should be connectors. I'm going to paint one red and one blue. Red and blue. They're just tiny dots, but the connectors on the real astronaut suit were painted red and blue. as you can see on the sitting down astronauts. Okay, those are almost in the authentic location on their suits, except that it's not authentic in this case because they were only on one side on the sitting inside the capsule astronauts. They were on both sides on the walking on the moon one, but they don't have any on here at all, really. So there it is. I'm going to paint a tiny little red dot on this connector here. That's what I'm attempting to do anyway. And I'm going to paint a tiny blue dot on the other one. You would think that painting a dot would go faster. You might think that. But then you remember that I'm the one doing it, and everything doesn't go faster. Everything just takes a long time, and it's not. Where did? Okay, well, now there's a red dot. And then there's also some flaws. I don't know what they look like. They look like little paint splashes. Okay. There, I succeeded in painting a tiny little red dot there. Okay, now I'm going to paint a slightly larger, but also fairly tiny blue dot, which will represent the other connector. Okay, I need so little paint, so tiny little bit of paint that I'm not even going to bother squeezing this out. I'm just going to take paint from the tip of the box there. Got way more than I really needed. No, there's a blue dot. Hey! I have, in the span of an hour and 15 minutes, painted 2 dots. No, I've done more than that. I got the windows installed in the lunar module. They haven't fallen out yet. One of them is slightly flawed. I can't do anything about it unless I start it over, and I don't want to do that because it's in a location that will be virtually invisible when it comes to it. Okay, now I'm going to paint the strap for the camera and the belt. Those are fairly well defined on one side. And maybe I'll paint this one as well. I need to find the right color. The astronaut suit, you can see the strap here. It's really it's a very, very light tan color. So I want to pick one. I don't want it too dark. Okay. Probably ivory is too light. Look at the old color chart. Dark sand is a little dark, but it's all I've got. Buff might work. Buff might be okay. Bone white. I've used bone white with a lot of success in the past. Um, Sometimes it takes multiple coats, but this is pretty small. It's either buff or bone white. I'm gonna use the bone white. Yeah, it's going to be my arbitrary and capricious color for that, and it gives me the opportunity to search in here for it. Bone white. This color was used. I used this quite a lot on the submarine. I think for some of the decks even. I'm not sure. Well, I'm doing painting. I didn't anticipate that. I thought I would be spending probably like 2 hours trying to get the windows in, but they kind of worked, and they're only there's only a problem with one of them a little bit in a place where it will be fairly invisible. Um, Painting the walking on the moon astronaut. I didn't think I'd be doing that today, but here I am doing that. Yeah, being right-handed, and this, no, not a good orientation. He's catching the stream today. Wednesday there was just this weird technical thing. I was moving along and got kicked off. The stream just got kicked off. Just went offline. Oof, just like that. For no apparent reason. There wasn't any wind. There was a little rain. It was wet outside, but I mean, it shouldn't. Or the internet didn't seem to go out, at least not noticeably in the rest of the house. And after about, I don't know, like 5 minutes or so, it came back, but people had already left, not knowing whether it would come back or not. It happened. So it's like, okay, well, the fates did not want that stream to continue, which is probably just as well. Nothing much really was happening. It gave me an opportunity to like take a little bit of a break before putting the windows in the lunar module, which I ended up doing today. So there are now windows in the lunar module. Not perfect. One is a B minus, the other one is a B. I am continuing to have some success on my quest to have B level quality. What is that? The thing is, looking at this with the 2x magnifiers, there's all these weird things, like there's this little string of something hanging down that I didn't see before. Can't get to it with the tweezers. I could get to it with the other tweezers if I can find them. That's the blunt-ended tweezer. This is the pointy-ended tweezer. On for decades without using tweezers, and then I started building these little models and started using tweezers. Pretty handy things, tweezers. This one, yeah, right down there. I'm going to paint that too because it's there. Although this isn't really authentic, the entire suit is not authentic. The pouch there, I'm going to paint that this color too, just to do it. It's a pretty inoffensive light color, and it just, otherwise it's just all white and not very interesting to look at. So I'm inauthentically painting detail on this guy. Just so that there's, so it's not just so boring. Okay, I probably should do that. It's the bottom of the strap. This paint is actually behaving pretty well. I wish the paint for the visor had been as good. Well, that line's a little bit ragged, but not too bad. Fortunately for me, you can't see. I can see with the extra light and the 2x magnifier in terms of the imperfections in the paint. I don't know why there's a little spot there, right there. It looks like the red paint, but it wasn't anywhere close to it. Okay, I'm just going to put a little dab of white paint on that just to cover it up. Let's see what else is on here in terms, other than the camera. I need to figure out what to do with the camera. The issue with the camera is that the real camera was actually white. Okay, except for the lens. In order to really see it, it should be painted a different color. I'm going to paint this kind of black and then put a silver spot on it for the lens. But the camera itself, I'm going to paint the camera ivory, just so that you can see it, but that it's not like jumping out at you. I'm going to spend some time on the camera here. Take some of this. Yeah, I'll just use this black. I was thinking of using the slightly glossy black, but it wouldn't be visible enough to make a difference. I'm going to take this, and this is where the lens is here. Make the whole thing black. And then I'm going to, after that dries, to the paint, but I need to have more than I'm getting from the tip here. Got enough to paint the entire model black. That was not good. The lens on the real camera was round, the lens housing. This is rectangular. One more. Whoever designed this did not bother going to the Smithsonian and looking at the real moon suit. They just didn't take the time to do that. Paint the outside of the lens casing black, and then I'm going to put a little dot. Oops. To represent the lens. That's something I did on the submarine. The submarine had these hatches, okay, and the hatches had little windows in them, and so I took a tiny little dot of silver paint to represent the windows. And it actually worked okay. Okay, when that dries, I'm going to paint this ivory just so that it has a slightly different color. Dot. My red dot is not good. I need to do a little more red on my red dot. That has to dry, otherwise I'll mess it up. I really shouldn't be using these because then I can see too much what doesn't look right. So anyway, in the future of the Jetsons, there are all sorts of helpful robots that are all sorts of helpful robot things, but they were all designed to do the useful robot things that they did. They had with good reason, abandoned the effort to make them all humanoid. For example, they didn't make them all bipedal. Why? Bipedal walking is really difficult, and having a machine do that is very hard. And you spend all this time and energy trying to get a bipedal walking robot, and what do you end up with? You get a robot that jerks around and doesn't look like it's very realistic. And it isn't terribly good at getting from one place to the other. So in the Jetsons, they didn't mess around with that. The robots mainly used wheels. They were more like Daleks than they were Terminators. There, that was a thing. And I made references to. I want the ivory paint, and I found it. Boom, just like that. How about that? That was pretty amazing. I'm putting paint away. Yep. I don't need this one anymore. This was the paint that I used on the fingertips of the gloves. There. Putting things away. Brass. I'm going to have to put another coat of brass on that, but that face mask, that brass color actually looks better than the gold. It looks more like the real thing than gold did, even though the real thing was gold. I want to make sure it's dry before I try to put a second coat on, though. Otherwise, the test patch I put here is still tacky. Otherwise, the second coat could pull off some of the first coat. The solvent in it could dissolve the paint underneath, and I don't want that to happen. I can't paint the camera ivory yet because the black isn't dry yet. What can I do? Well, I can do a couple of things. One of them is that I can talk about Dice and Dungeons. Dice and Dungeons is a group of family and friends, and our main purpose is to run a Dungeons and Dragons show, and it's a really good show that streams on Twitch with a live chat. A live chat on Sundays, like 3 Sundays a month, with some accommodation for holiday weekends. And if you haven't already, you should catch it. And if you can't catch it with a live chat, you can also look at past episodes, which are put up on YouTube, or you can even listen to them as a podcast, because we are so entertaining and something is going on all the time that the podcast format actually it works okay. It's pretty good. And the D&D show is set in a world that was created by our dungeon mistress. It's a very imaginative and complicated world, and all of our characters' backstories also become more challenging and complicated as the show goes on. We're steered in different directions by discoveries about our past. And it's always, sometimes it's actually pretty touching what we find out, or scary occasionally as well, about what we find out, what happened to us in the past and how we got to where we are. But we're also kind of fun. We spend a lot of time looking for discount magic shops. There's nothing better than the discount bin at a magic shop. And our DM puts up with that and sometimes creates weird little items that are essentially useless but fun. Like, I have a pair of socks that leaves a trail of gum behind me when I walk. They're magical, so I can wear them inside my boots, and it still leaves a trail of gum behind. And one of our other characters got a pair of shoes that if you click the heels together, no, it doesn't take you home to Kansas. They turn into giant clown shoes. So that's kind of fun. Anyway, those are things we do. We're also always on the quest for the perfect pretzel. And we've only had a pretzel day a couple of times when we do our pretzel day roll. And then we have combats, and the combats have been getting more and more challenging as we have leveled up. My character has knocked unconscious, been mostly dead twice now. And was healed just in the nick of time by our druid or our bard. But yeah, the D&D show is really pretty fascinating, and you should watch it because it's really cool. And while I'm waiting for paint to dry, as you sit here you're watching paint dry on this figure, specifically the brass color on the helmet, visor, and that little black dot, which is the lens holder of the camera. We're waiting for those to dry before I can paint the camera, put a second coat on the visor, and put a tiny dot of silver paint in the middle to represent the lens. So let me talk about this. This stream started, as I mentioned, at least once on every stream, because we do dungeon tiles. We produce dungeon tiles on the 3D printers behind me, and we use those in the show. And an example of them, this is a fancy one. This sigil, this flame sigil, is printed right on the print. The 3D printer is able to build that up vertically. It's kind of impressive. And then they're hand painted, and these were hand painted, base coated, highlighted, washed, detailed right here on this stream. And were these are my favorite ones. We have stone as well, like that stone one I showed you, but these are made of the same PLA material, but are made to look like wood. And so these get primed and then they're hand painted, and we hand painted these on this stream as well. And they were just painted a base coat of brown and then washed, really nice reddish brown wash to bring out the wood grain and the detail. And then the stucco is painted in later. But the really cool thing about these, well, besides them looking really good, is they have working doors. Okay, the doors work. We have other specialty tiles that I'm not going to show you because I don't have them handy. But the really cool thing about these is that under these plates on the bottom here are little ball magnets in the corners, and they then grab onto each other. So we don't have connectors that are really hard to put together or pull apart. Could put connectors there, but then once they're connected, they're really kind of hard to manipulate. You don't need a special metal base or anything, but because this is just cardboard, they attach to each other. And so the tiles can be rearranged like that. I mean, it's pretty amazing how these were put together by our DM and painted by, like I painted these along with Nicole. But we got all the dungeon tiles needed for the moment, and we got our minifigs done. I do occasionally do a minifig like this one, who I hope will be friendly. Okay. I haven't painted minifigs in a while because we haven't needed those either. This one, I'm sure, this is probably going to show up on the show sometime. Some sort of mycelium moss monster. Okay, rising up from the ooze. But yeah, painting minifigs has been kind of fun. There's a Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl might be friendly. I don't know. We'll see. But when there weren't dungeon tiles and minifigs to paint, I started working on some old models, and I did a Renwall submarine that I keep promising I'll show to you sometime to prove that it actually was done. Or you can just watch some previous episodes of this stream on YouTube and see the epic conclusion of the finishing of the submarine model. Now I'm working on this Apollo model, and as I'm still waiting for paint to dry, probably take a break soon and then come back after break and continue working on this little astronaut. This is the model I'm working on. And I've got the escape tower done, and I've got the service module with the opening. This hatch here opens up, and you can see some of the detail inside. I've got the fairing components finished, but I have to glue them together. And I haven't done that because then I have to store it somewhere. And right now the parts are in a box, and that's easy. And now I'm working on the lunar module. And it's getting close. I think I'll probably wait till Monday to do the masking on the windows. I just want that to set up. And as I get near the end of a stream, as it gets closer and closer to 2 o'clock, I'm not sure I'll go all the way to 2 today. I'll probably do more like 1 or 1:30. Anyway, I have to mask the windows, and then I can put the two parts of the lamp together And after that cement sets, then I can get the seam taken care of, and then I can paint it. So it's still a multi-step process, and along the way, you'll be watching me doing filing and sanding. The painting will actually be done off screen because I can't show you the spray. I don't have a. This is my studio. This camera and the one over there that's aiming at me, and a piece of cardboard which I need to replace. I need to get a new cardboard. So the scent stage of the lunar module will be finished, assuming nothing else happens. Okay, assuming nothing else happens, the ascent stage of the lunar module will be finished next week. And then I can start working on the descent stage, which will be pretty cool because it's got like gold foil and stuff on it and struts that the landing struts fold up and then unfold. And a little bit of a challenge because they're pretty delicate little pieces. But yeah, that's it. And then the lunar module will be done, and then the final work will be done on the command module. And the command module is a little disappointing. It's kind of neat on the outside, but the inside is not well done. Like you can, if you open the hatch does open, and you look through these little windows, you'll be able to see these little astronaut guys sitting in their couches, right? But the control panel has very, very shallow raised edges to show the instrumentation of the control panel. And you can see it through the windows in the hatch. Not really well, but if you look up into it, you can. So I said, well, what does the control panel look like? Maybe I can, that's what the control panel looks like. So what I'm going to end up doing is painting it light blue. The undercoat of the entire inside of the command module is painted the same light blue color that this is. Okay. But I'm going to try to, there's no way I'm going to be able to paint this freehand, right? To make it look like this. But I should be able to get like some of the things like the green patches and some of these rows of circuit breakers and these, which look like they're supposed to be orientation components, like the false horizon on an airplane. But it makes no sense because this is all done in weightlessness. So there's no up or down. I don't know what those are supposed to be. Unless they're gyroscopically controlled. Maybe that is. Maybe they're gyroscopically controlled to show the orientation of the command module relative to something, whatever, so that when they fire the attitude control jets on the service module, then you know which way you're oriented. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to mess around with the control panel on the model to make it look kind of like this. All right. Paint is drying. It's not dry yet. When I come back from break, I'm going to put a second coat of this brass paint on the faceplate. I'm going to paint the camera ivory and put a tiny dot of silvery, maybe even chrome paint in the center of the camera to make it look like there's a lens. And then I'm not going to mess with this any further until all that paint is dry. And then I'm going to use a light gray wash. See how the backpack here looks kind of dirty? Well, the astronaut on the moon got pretty dirty. And so I'm going to just mess with that light gray wash, building down from like on the legs a little bit and maybe a little bit on the arms. Not overdoing it, but I'll do like the backpack, the whole thing in light gray, and then kind of build up the gray wash at the bottoms of the legs to make it look like they're covered in moon dust. Yeah, I don't think there really wasn't very much detail on the moon suits. They were all just pretty white. So I actually have more on here than there was on the real thing. So after break, I'm going to finish the camera, put a second coat on the faceplate, and then decide what to do next. But there, yeah, I'm going to start the break a little bit early. It's about 10 to 12. I should be back by like 12:20 or so. And then go maybe, I don't know, not terribly much longer. I do want to finish the camera and get that done. And then do maybe a little bit of test fitting on the ascent stage here to see what I'm into. Poke at the window just a little bit to see if it's adhering. Maybe, probably not do taping today. It's just the kind of thing I would do where I would poke the window out. So depending on how it's going, I'll finish the astronaut guy at least before I put the moon dust on it. What I'll probably do is just jump ahead a little bit and start cleaning up. And you can see that these pieces need cleaning. There's flashing on them and pieces of plastic that shouldn't be there. This is the descent stage. It's got lots of little struts and stuff. I'll probably just start cleaning these pieces up, doing a little bit of sanding and filing, because that's relatively safe stuff to do. Do it without breaking things. But the big deal is that there are now windows. See the reflection. There are now windows attached to the LEM. That was a really big breakthrough, and now I can, once I get them carefully masked so that I don't spray paint all over them, I'll actually be really close to being done with this. Yeah. So, yeah, break time. I will be back in about half an hour. And I'm back. 5 minutes late. The clock down here is fast. So I was planning to get down here at 12:20, and it is 12:22, but it looks like 12 anyway. It's a different time zone on the wall clock. Oh, hi. Welcome back. So on Wednesday, I have to apologize for that, although I couldn't do anything about it. For some reason, I just got kicked off the stream. The stream stopped streaming. It went offline, and it went off for a little while, and then it actually came back. I'm not sure, with what quality, but it was, at that point, everything was all disrupted. So, yeah, it ended early Wednesday because of a thing with the internet. But today, nothing's broken yet today, so welcome. And I'm glad you joined in again. Hi, Who. And I'm going to do a flip. This is like a Schrodinger's cat flip thing. On one side it's living, and on the other side it's not. Okay, so I don't know what is living or not, but we'll find out, because that's how you find out about whether something's living or not is you measure it. And that's, you open the box. Anyway. Okay, well, that's indeterminate. I ended up with 3 living and 3 not living. So whatever it is either or not. So this morning I accomplished some things. I actually, believe it or not, I don't really believe it, even though there's some little flaws in it. There's windows. There's windows now in the LEM. If you look behind, you can see, those are the little tabs that I used to hold the window with the tweezers while I got it in place. But They haven't fallen off yet. What I need to do next, and I'm not going to do this until Monday, so you'll need to come back to see it really happen, hopefully, is I need to very carefully and completely mask the windows. Okay. Right on. I mean, just perfectly, I need to perfectly mask them, so that I can assemble these two parts together. And once they're cemented together, you can see the seams. Okay. The seams are really bad on this. The parts don't fit very well and all of that. So the seams all need to be sanded down and maybe even filled in some places. And once that's done, once again, sanding and filing, right? But once that's done, then off camera, again, because I don't have any way of showing you where I'm spraying paint, this whole thing's going to get primed. And it's going to be, painting this is a little challenge with the spray paint because of just all the nooks and crannies and angles that all need to be painted, right? So this is one of those things where it's going to be like, well, I'll do this side, and then I'll do this side, and then this side, and then this side, and hope that it all levels out. And then after that, it's all painted dark, sort of bluish gray metallic. So the surface prep needs to be pretty good so that it looks all right. And then hopefully I'll peel off the tape and the windows will still be in place and it will be okay. Because if it isn't, I don't know how I'm going to fix it. Oh, yeah, this is something else I need to do. I just thought of it. I need to make sure that the masking tape that I use doesn't leave a residue or a flaw on the plastic. So I'm going to test that right now. This is the tape I'm using. This is special modeling tape, and it's supposed to not cause a problem. Well, let's rip some off here. And I'm going to put it on a piece of this that's all covered with little bubbles and stuff. I'm going to put it on there. And on Monday, before I start taping the windows, I'm going to peel this off to make sure that it doesn't do anything to the plastic. I might also be using this. This is 1/16 of an inch tape, very narrow, but it might be useful for like getting into the corners. Sure. But I'm going to test a piece of this as well. I think it's the same tape. It's just teeny. But I don't want to have gone through the trouble of putting those windows in and then, unmasking them sometime later after it's too late. There's actually a dispenser for these. This is a refill that goes into a little dispenser, but you would think that if they were selling this tape that they'd be prominently selling the dispensers as well. You just pull it off and, like a cellophane tape dispenser. Anyway, I'm going to need to check this on Monday before I end up doing some irreversible work. So far, everything I've done has been reversible. That is to say, if it failed, I could pull those windows off and start over. But once I glue those pieces together, then all bets are off. The only way to fix it would be to cut them apart, which is theoretically possible, but it would be a messy thing to do. So the rest of this session, I'm going to paint the camera I'm painting the camera case ivory and putting a tiny little dot of chrome paint on there, and I need to put a second coat on the visor. So I think I'm going to put away this regular silver paint. This one. Silver is even lighter. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this for the dot for the lens. Anyway, on Monday, if this tape works without leaving a lot of, residue or marring the surface, I'm going to tape the windows, and assuming that goes successfully, I'm going to glue the two halves together. That's what's going to happen Monday. And then that's going to set, okay, until Wednesday, at which point I will then sand and file the seam and then prime it. And if it looks okay, anyway, I thought about maybe finishing it next week. I don't know. I don't want to mess around with filling and sanding and filing the seam until I know that the cement is set, and that's not going to happen until Wednesday, and then I'll be doing that. I suppose there's some chance, I'll just say this, don't count on it, but there's a slight possibility that if after I prime it, it looks good, like the seam isn't terrible and doesn't need a lot of rework, that I could paint the metallic on it, and then on Friday I could finish it. I'm going to try to do that. Okay, I'm going to try to do that. But there's like a 50-50 chance that would actually happen. Okay, head magnifier time again. But thanks for joining in, Ever After. I appreciate that, especially after the abrupt cutoff on Wednesday. That just knocked the stream offline. I'm likely, I don't know, we'll see how things are going. Dog watching this week too. So unless there's a big ruckus upstairs, you just never know. I might need to end abruptly, even if it's not the internet's fault. Okay. I'm trying to put a dot in exactly the right spot. There is a dot there, but it's very tiny. There, look. Here, look at that. I did it. I got an out of focus. You can't see it, but I put a silver dot in the center of the camera. I am so happy that something went okay today. Actually, everything's been going pretty well today. I don't know why. There's almost always an oops. But today the windows went in. They look okay. They're not great, but they look okay. Putting these paints away. I'm going to be using them. I am doing a good thing. I am trying to keep my work surface clear. Thing. I don't need this color. I'm going to paint the camera. Okay, the camera rectangle. I'll paint that ivory so that it is visible. So this guy is actually coming along okay. Okay, this is just bizarre things happen, okay? So I was painting the face mask, right? And then right here on the glove, right there, nowhere near anything at all. There's a little spot of like brass or gold paint on the glove. I have no clue how that happened. So I'm going to have to get this out. I'm going to fix it now. I know it is. It's there. That happened on the front of it as well. When I painted the little red dot, a little spot of red paint ended up like over here. How? I have no clue. I have no clue how that happened. I almost start to believe that my paint has the ability to leap. I think I know what happened. When I was sanding it, when I was removing the paint, that probably is like a bit of the paint. I got it covered. Probably a little bit of the paint that was actually just from the removal, like paint dust. Probably not on camera, no. Since I have this paint out, the fingertip point on this one was too big. And I thought, well, I'll just leave it. But since I've got this color out again, I'm doing just weird little unnecessary detail on this minifig because I haven't painted a minifig in a long time. This is stuff that's going to be invisible. It's just paint not going. So paint and I apparently have a very uneasy relationship in that it goes where I don't want it. It doesn't go where I do. So the thing is here is that the real gloves, the real Apollo gloves, had blue fingertips because the fingertips are made out of a different material than the rest of the gloves. So I actually painted those blue. The back of this, it's just, there's too much of it there, but I'm not getting the paint to behave and I'm just going to leave it. It's one of those things that I've learned the hard way over and over. It's just like one more little thing, and that one more little thing messes things up. That happened in a significant way in the service module, where I had to essentially repaint the entire inside of it because of one tiny little spot. Moving the palette here so you can, I know people really like to see paint, right? So I finished my ranting about humanoid robots and how the Jetsons got it right, in the far distant future, where they had all sorts of robot assistants doing everything for them. And they didn't bother trying to make them humanoid, they just made them functional. They designed them so that they just did their job, as opposed to trying to have realistic facial expressions. Like that's going to be a big breakthrough. Somebody's going to create a humanoid robot face that's externally powered, that costs $17 million, that will smile. And it won't even be a good smile. It'll be one of those weird smiles that you sometimes get, where one of those creepy smiles. You just know that's going to be the case. But everybody will get all excited. It'll be in all the news. They'll show it off. It'll be at all the cons, the Comic Cons and whatever. Oh, look, it's a robot face that gives you a creepy smile. I'm predicting that is actually going to happen because that's just how things are. But enough of that. Now I'm going to paint the camera this ivory color. It's not terribly much different than the white, but it will be just, hoping, just different enough so that it's clear that it's something other than the rest of the suit. And if it isn't, if after it dries it doesn't give the effect that I'm looking for, I can paint it a darker color. After I'm done with the camera, I'm going to do what I just remembered I need to do, because I had not remembered it until just now, which is to put another coat of brass paint on another coat of brass paint on the faceplate. I think the ivory paint is working. Just enough without making it look exceptionally dark. Just enough color so that it sort of stands out against the rest of the suit. Thing next week is I'm hoping to get the music back. Where it is, oh geez, okay. I missed. Misapplied, and I got some right on the black. Really, I did. And now somehow I need to get this tiniest little, I can't believe that. Just as I was nearly finished with it. Once again, there's always something, right? It's always there. There's always an oops. Always an oops. I did an oops. It was a small oops, but it's an annoying oops because it was so close to being finished. Oh, that's like the shutter button. Okay. It's probably enough of an oops you can see it if it focused. But I've got the black rectangle holding the lens, and I got just the tiniest little dot of this ivory paint right where I didn't want it. And then I've got a tiny little spot up here where I do want a tiny dot of ivory paint, and I can't get it there. Okay. Now I'm going to have to let that set for a bit and then come back with a tiny dot of black. I don't know. I'm going to get impatient. Should I go ahead and get impatient and see if I can oops the oops? Can I do an alley oops? Tempted to do is okay. And sorry, That was a bad idea. I need to let that paint dry. Otherwise, it's just going to turn into a muddle of ivory and black and really be a mess. So I'm going to wait a little bit before I destroy, and then have to and it's not bad. I'd have to just repaint the camera case and put the silver dot back on later. At least it's one of these reversible things. So let me review. I will review what has been accomplished today. Once again, like 2.5 hours, right? What did I do in 2.5 hours? What I did in 2.5 hours was I got a single coat of paint on the faceplate. So I could repaint. I can put the second coat on while I'm waiting for that black to dry. That would be efficient. I spent 45, almost 50 minutes getting these windows in. Yay. And if they stay in as I mask them, and if the masking tape test shows that the tape doesn't mar the plastic, I will mask them on Monday when early in the stream when I still have focus. And if I successfully mask them, these two parts will be cemented together like that. And I'm going to put an excess of cement on. I know more than is recommended, so that it oozes up. I want it to dissolve the plastic and ooze it into the opening, the seam. I want it to ooze into the seam so I can sand the seam down without having to put filler in. Okay, maybe I'll put like a little clamp there and there and there just to hold it together. And then assuming that the taping works and that this works on Wednesday, I'm going to get the seam sanded down. And then on Thursday, maybe even Wednesday evening, but off camera, I'm going to prime it. And if the seam looks okay, that is that it doesn't show terribly much, I might have to do a little corrections yet. There might be a little bit of additional sanding and filing. But I know people folks would probably like this to move along, right? Since it hasn't been moving along very well. I'm going to try to get it primed and painted by Friday morning so that on Friday of next week, I can come back and finish it. And there isn't too much to finishing it. There is attaching these 3 antennae, which are really simple. Okay. And then the more difficult part is attaching these 16 reaction control jets to these brackets. And I'll be figuring out how to do that. In the meantime, we're just watching. While we're watching that paint dry, I'm going to get the brass paint out and put a second coat on the visor. The other thing, this astronaut guy is supposed to go inside. Its feet are supposed to be cemented to the bottom of this so that you can look in through the windows and see its little astronaut face peeking out. And after I mask the windows and before I cement it together, I'm going to cement his feet to the bottom. And I hope it holds. Yeah, I really do. I'm going to put a huge excess of cement on it. Pretty much just embed its feet in the base of the LEM because you won't be able to see its feet. There isn't any way that they'll be visible. But if it falls off while I'm manipulating it, because I'll be doing a lot of, you can see, spray painting this, there's going to be a lot of turning and holding and things to get it in all the different angles. I really don't want it to fall off. If it does, there's an open hatch on the top that I can just pull it out and maybe try again later. I don't know. Yeah, the second coat is helping this. It was a little bit uneven. It's making it look a little better. This is another one of those. It's the tiniest little spot. You see his tiniest little bitsy spot. Might be off camera, but okay. So the surface isn't perfectly mirror-like, but it's not bad. I think it came out okay. Now, if I really knew what I was doing, unfortunately, I said fortunately, not unfortunately. Fortunately, I don't. Do next. Actually, what I should have done, if I really knew what I was doing, is I should have carefully masked this whole thing and spray painted it. Then I wouldn't have to worry about brush marks. Okay. I would have spray painted it gold after having incredibly carefully masked this whole thing, all around the outside, which would have been way past my skill level, I think. So if I really knew what I was doing and I was trying to do this like display level modeling, where I could sell this for hundreds of dollars, as opposed to putting it under dim light at least 18 inches away from the observer, is I would have masked this all off, spray painted this with gold paint, and then covered it with a gloss clear coat so that it was, really mirror-like. So if I was getting paid hundreds of dollars for an astronaut figure, I would have, that's what I would have done. But as it is, I'm not getting paid. No, there's no payment involved here. I'm an unpaid intern painter, and so I'm not going. I'm just saying that as an example of what a super duper professional master modeler would have done. I'm letting you know that I know that's what could have been done. But also letting you know that I am not capable of doing that kind of thing. Well, that's not entirely true. I probably could have tried, but then you would watch me spend like an hour. Not that you haven't already. You watched me spend an hour putting tape on stuff, but that's how an hour would have been spent. Now you're watching me spend like 8 minutes trying to get rid of a tiny little oops dot. Okay. I think that is now as good as I can get it. My own limitations here. You know, I think I can get that better. And then 8 times out of 10, 4 times out of 5, rounding down, that's like third grade arithmetic, right? Rounding down it's as good as it's going to get. So I'm going to hydrate. And there's the astronaut, the standing on the moon astronaut. So it's got these gloves with the little blue fingered points on it, just like the real suit. The real suit has these little blue finger point tips on it. Yeah, that's what I should do. I should try to paint these patches. Can you see me trying to paint a microscopic NASA patch on the right shoulder up there? There's a nice place for it. There's a really nice open spot there. Visit the camera where I could paint a blue patch and then pretend to paint NASA on it. It's almost tempting to try that. I am almost tempted to try to paint a blue NASA patch. I'm also almost tempted to paint a U.S. flag on the left shoulder. Those are interesting temptations. What can I? Okay. Well, anyway, this guy is now complete, except that I want to use the light gray wash that I used on the backpack, because the guy on the moon got filthy from moon dust. And the way I can make it look that way is by using that really light gray, almost no pigmented wash on this whole thing, and then build it up on the legs just above the gloves and up to a little bit above the knees, and real heavy on the boots. I mean, this one had been like super thoroughly cleaned, and you can still see the embedded moon dust in the boots. Anyway, yeah, now that I've gone through all the trouble of painting this, in as much detail as I could, I'm going to just slap wash on it and hope it doesn't ruin it. But it's really too pristine right now. And the little bit I did on the backpack worked out well enough that I feel confident, especially with all the folds in it, that it would look okay. Yeah, the inner seam on the leg. Really should file that down a little bit. This is another one of those I really shouldn't mess with it, but I'm going to anyway. When will I ever learn my lesson kind of situations? So I don't know if you can see it, but this thing was put together front and back, and when you look at it from the back, the seam between the two halves is really obvious on the back leg here. So I am actually going to, I know I'm going to be cutting through the paint layers, but you can always throw a little bit of white paint on it. It's not much, but it's just really annoying. I don't know. The designers of this model tried. They didn't get the real moon suit look, and they could have if they'd gone. Even they didn't even have to go to the Smithsonian. Okay, they just needed to get like the picture that I did. And even though when this model was made, there wasn't any internet, right? There probably was. I mean, there was the ARPANET or whatever it was. They could have gotten a photograph from the Smithsonian of Armstrong's moon suit and made it look like it. I don't know. Maybe there's like a NASA copyright on the suit. Like they couldn't reproduce it accurately. Otherwise, they'd be violating a copyright. That might be. I'm just speculating about why the designers made this look so much not like the real moon suit. It's almost like they went out of their way to make it not look like the real thing. Okay, well, perfect, but it's a whole lot less obvious than it was. The other side's, yeah, the other side's still there too, but it's not as bad. So on Monday, yeah, besides masking the windows and putting the two halves together, gluing the standing astronaut inside, and then gluing the two halves together. Besides doing that, and I'm really hoping that the masking goes well, I'm going to get the light gray washout and trying to make this guy look like he's covered in moon dust without seeing. It looks like there's another spot of red paint that like jumped somewhere from somewhere. No, it was dust. Yay. It being dust means that it just blew off. I'm going to take this figure off of the sticky tack, lay it down, because otherwise it's going to fall over and maybe break or something. Some tools away. Okay. I'm going to need these, definitely need these tweezers on Monday to be dealing with the tape. And I'm going to be needing some manipulated toothpicks. I'm preparing tools for my masking job on Monday. Yeah, so there isn't anything more I can really do with, unless I'm forgetting something that I'll remember later, maybe. There isn't really much I can do with these components right now. Until next week when I mask things. There is one more little thing I can do with this. I want this toothpick has a rounded end, and I need it to be flat because I'm going to be pushing masking tape into tiny little corners, sharp corners, especially that one there, right up in there, trying to get it really tight in that corner. So I'm going to be using the pointy end, but also this flat end. I'm making a tool. Pretty impressive work, huh? Beveling the end as well so that I can get it. There, it's a tool. I'm covering this up now, and I'll be back to all of this on Monday, masking the windows cementing this guy in after I mask the windows, because while I'm masking the windows, I'm going to have to hold it from behind with a gloved finger so that if I put a little pressure on it, it doesn't pop the window out, hopefully. There. Won't need this anymore. I'll have to remember to wash that. No, Nines always teases me about it takes me half of the stream to find my brushes. There they are. There's some brushes there, which I will not be needing on the first part of the stream on Monday because I will be masking stuff. I've got a little bit less than an hour, so let's jump ahead. I'm going to jump ahead here and start showing you the descent stage of the lunar module. And I'm also just throwing stuff around on the workbench. I'm just putting stuff off to the side where I'm not really putting it away or cleaning up. Some of that's usable. These are the instruction manuals. This is the, okay, I'll just show you this. This is the template that they gave us for the, well, it's a copy of the template that came. Sure, let me show you the real thing. So there's the template window pattern. I made a copy so I didn't have to cut up the instruction manual. But as you can see, they made it an isosceles triangle in that the two sides were the same, but the real window is a scalene triangle where one side is longer than the other. And so after playing around with this window pattern, I've discovered that it was useless. And these are the window patterns for the command module. And I'm not sure if they're going to be any much better. I don't know. We'll find out when I get around to doing the command module issue a billion years from now. So this is the thing I've been working on. These were, they suggest attaching the attitude control jets to these brackets before putting the brackets onto the model, but that turned out to be a really bad idea because these brackets didn't fit into the model. And it required a fair amount of filling and sanding, and these little jets would have really been in the way. So they're going to be the last thing that goes on. Anyway, what's going to happen, hopefully next week, is that the two halves here will be joined together. Okay, most of these parts are already on, and after it's painted, these three bits, these little antennae will be attached. And then the reaction control jets, the 16 of them will go onto the brackets like that. The other part of the lunar excursion module is the descent stage. And that's what the descent stage parts are in this box. Ta-da. And most of the challenge here is getting these landing struts to actually work the way they're supposed to work. That is to say, they're supposed to fold up. And if you can see it here, these tiny little bits of plastic, like that little pin there, there's this three parts all come together. Somehow or other, they're supposed to work. And like this cup comes up, see there's a hole in the bracket there. They're in here because they all fell out. Somehow or other, this little hook comes up through that hole, and then there's supposed to be a little sprocket that with little pins on either side that are supposed to fit in there and not fall off. And there's 4 of them, and all 4 of them have to work. I am skeptical. I have no idea how much manipulation I'm going to have to do, or even if I can get it to work or not. But when you're looking at that kind of complicated hinge mechanism, made out of this tiny little plastic. I mean, really tiny plastic stuff, a 16th of an inch maybe. And at the same time, um, poorly molded. Okay. So that the seams are showing on the sides of these roundy bits. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. We'll find out. But they're all supposed to end up like this on the side of the lunar module, and they're supposed to fold up like that. See, they extend out so it can land, and then they're supposed to fold up underneath it so that it fits inside the fairing. That is why I ended up doing the ascent stage first, because I thought it would be simpler. And it sort of was, except for the parts not fitting together at all and the windows being, after practicing and trying like 9 different things, I finally got windows installed, and they're okay. This is kind of cool. This whole thing is actually ending up being painted gold, because it really was. And around the outside of this is gold foil, and gold foil actually came with the kit. And it wraps around and gets attached somehow. I'm not sure how. We'll find out. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to be working on next, is getting some of these parts to work. Oh, and then they did clever things like this is the bottom of the descent stage. This goes on like this. Eventually it goes on like this. Okay. And you can see, once again, there's seams all over the place, right? Pieces of plastic that need to be taken off and smoothed out. But on the very bottom, this is one of the things I'm going to get rid of, is the actual descent stage. The real descent stage did not have the copyrighted logo of the model maker on it. Can you see it here? It says copyright Revell Inc. Yeah, there we go. I got an angle on it. And I'm going to sand that off, because, and there was another one. There was one just like this on the base of the service module. And again, it was like, no, I'm not running an ad for you. Yeah, well, I'm gonna start with this. This is where it was attached to the trees, the sprue. I'm going to saw those off, because I don't want to get a divot into the side of that, and then sand them down so that they don't show anymore. Otherwise, I mean, other than it's on the inside, other than these attachments and the advertising, this piece, I have to say, this piece is like one of the better quality pieces that we've had. There's a little bit of excess plastic there that needs to come out, because that hole, one of the struts needs to go into that hole. So that'll be easy. I can just poke that out with a pin. But oh, what the heck? I've got a little bit of time, and I bought this new toy, which I almost dropped. I've used this like once, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to use it again. Is in taking these off, what I want to do is leave a little bit of plastic attached to the model. I want to do that so I can sand it flat. If I just broke them off, it could leave a divot, and then the divot would have to be filled in. So I bought this little micro saw, tiny little micro saw that works better at doing this than trying the X-Acto knife, which anyway, Yeah, you can't hear it because it's screened out, but it's making little sawing noises. You know, I'm not gonna anyway. I tried to imitate it. That was dumb. That didn't work. There, cut it off, and there's a little tab left, and that will then be easy to sand down right to the level surface, as opposed to having an indentation, which would have been bad. So I get to do this twice more. There's two blade. There's ultra fine and fine. This is fine. You can tell it's fine because it tells you, it says fine on it. There's another blade that's like ultra fine, but this is like the difference between a regular saw and a finishing saw is this isn't fine work. This is just cutting off excess plastic. There. Now I've got little bits of plastic and I got plastic dust. The other thing I should do before I start working on Monday is I need a new piece of cardboard, and it'll be cleaner. I'm going to try just using the sandpaper on this rather than a file. I need some ideas for, a monologue. I need monologue ideas for next week. I really ran out of things to talk about too, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and had to do this family thing last week and the week before, so that was okay because I didn't have anything to talk about on the stream. So not doing a stream meant that I didn't have to talk on the stream because I wasn't doing the stream. But now I am, and next week I'll be back to normal again, as normal as things get, in terms of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from more or less 10 until more or less 2. I could do a reprise of some of my favorite things. I did enjoy talking about how the advent of cable TV totally destroyed the television antenna industry. Okay, and you might say, well, it was replaced by satellite dishes, but that isn't the same. It's an entire industry. If you looked at pictures of cities, any kind of cityscape of a residential area from especially from the 50s and 60s, every house had at least one television antenna. Okay, and when you think about it, I mean, somebody had to make them, somebody had to design them, somebody had to make them, somebody had to install them. The people who made them had to get parts and materials, so there was this entire supply chain involved, of the metal that they were made of, and the construction of the rods, and even the mining and everything. Okay, because the tubular material for the television antennas, that was a specialized metal thing. An entire industry, from the extraction of raw materials right through the installation and sometimes repair of these television antennas, just disappeared. Okay, I mean, talk about job destroying, right? And yeah, that was an interesting thing to think about and talk about. And the same thing happened with vacuum tubes when the transistors replaced them. There's entire industries, right, from the extraction of raw materials to the assembly, and even the tube testers, the machines that were used to test whether tubes were working or not. Just all poof, all gone. And it went without a huge protest. So I'm just going to compare and contrast that, those entire industries totally disappeared without, there weren't any marches, there weren't any huge lobbyists, trying to get special legislative protections for the industries. None of that happened. And yet other innovations, affecting probably way fewer people even. Nowadays, you just hear about job killing, this, that, and the other thing. And seriously, it's not. You're not compared to that. Back in special little case there. And I need to get rid of Revell ink. Okay. This might be the last thing I do today, is getting rid of Revell ink. I think I'm going to just use this. The 600 grit seems to be, it seems to cut into the plastic pretty well. I could use a file, but then the file makes gouges. It works a lot faster, but then it gouges the plastic, and I end up taking just as much time sanding the gouges out as probably sanding off the Revell ink. This might take a while because they're up pretty high. Of all things that they wanted on this model to be, overdone, it was their logo. Not their logo, but their trademark. Yeah, tells you something about their priorities, doesn't it? Well, eventually, it's sort of disappearing. There's less of it there than when I started. One would hope so. After rubbing it with sandpaper, that there'd be less of it. And the plastic is coming off on the sandpaper, so there's that. After Revell ink copyright, seeing a circle disappears, I'm going to polish this section with really fine-grained sandpaper so that and I might even just go all the way around at this point, because otherwise the surface texture will be different than the rest. One thing that is really important to know, but I find difficult to remember, is there's this tendency when I sand things, and other people might as well, to to look. Okay, well, the thing I'm trying to say is, if you can see it, okay, if you can see it, you're not sanding it. So I'm doing this, and instead of just rubbing it in a way so that it's never visible, which means the sandpaper is covering it, I have this tendency to do that. Be fairly, away from the camera, but it's the markings are visible, which means that they're not under the sandpaper, which means that they're not getting sanded. Well, yeah, this is tedious, but it's coming along. It is less there is less Revell ink on there than there was before. All of this effort to get rid of the logo is because I'm annoyed by it. It's like, really, your model is not all that. It's a good model, you know. I mean, it's like an impressionistic model of the Apollo stack. In that, if you look at it, you get a pretty good impression of what the thing looked like. But if you look at the detail, it's just not historically accurate in a lot of ways. And there's places where more detail could have been put in, but they didn't. But that's what I'm annoyed by. Really, you had to put your logo on it. You know, you really didn't have to put your logo on it. Now the logo is almost gone. I got the C in the circle left, and on the other end, I've got a little bit of ink left. The INC kind of ink. If I can't feel it, I'll pick it up with my fingernail. That's a pretty good indication that it's no longer going to be visible. Yeah, so I just need to go over here and get the ink. And then, like I said, I'm going to get some finer sandpaper and polish this, but then also polish the rest of these so that I don't have one that has a different surface texture than the others. I'm sure this was the best use of my last half hour of the stream. Sanding out the logo. Okay, so the logo is now sanded out. And I'll get this out. This is my cloth I used to polish off the surface to get rid of the abrasion marks. And it doesn't polish it quite to the same degree as the untouched plastic, but it makes it less matte. And then I can go around and get the rest of them too so that they match. It's like 1,500 grit. I've got a 2,000 and a 3,000 as well, but I find this is sufficient for this kind of thing. Yeah. So once again, Dice and Dungeons is a Dungeons and Dragons show that you should definitely watch. It streams with a live chat on Sundays, usually 3 Sundays a month. The schedule will vary a little bit depending on holiday weekends. And the holidays are based on U.S. holidays. So, apologies to those folks who are catching this from, I know somebody from the Philippines watches, and then folks from Europe. Anyway, yeah. We base our clock on Eastern Daylight Time until it's becomes standard time again in the fall. Unless legislation is passed that keeps daylight saving time permanent, and I hope it does, because not being a real morning person, I don't care if it's dark in the morning. I just like to have the lingering twilight, the little bit of light in the evenings that you get from daylight saving time. So basically, this kind of just deglosses the surface so that it all matches the place where I got rid of the logo, which is no longer there. All right. So this part, because it was other than the logo, actually not badly done, kind of shocking, not badly molded. It's kind of done. I'm going to very carefully, one of these holes that is essential for the later assembly has a little bit of excess plastic in it. Actually, it has a lot of excess plastic in it. It's kind of a pain. I'm using the needle file to clear it out. Yeah, on camera, stay on camera. I'm reminded that that's an important thing. That if I'm streaming something, it's and I'm talking about what I'm doing, and it's not on camera, that it doesn't count. It's yeah. Anyway, this when this came out of the mold, there was just some excess plastic there that kind of partially closed the hole, and I am getting rid of it with this little needle file. Yeah, good enough. I don't want to do it too. Don't want to get too much of it. You do need to clean up down here. I keep just putting things off to the side, and then they stay off to the side, and then they get in the way later because they're not gone; they're just off to the side. Okay, so this piece is okay. I haven't heard anything upstairs yet. Oh, hi. Let me look at the screen here. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks. So your one shot got shelved. Are you going to save it and maybe do it later, or is it just like off the table altogether? So tell me a little. Well, I haven't. I'm not going to be on too terribly much longer today, but tell me a little bit about what you're doing in your current campaign. That's always interesting, and other people who are looking at chat might find it interesting as well. Right now, I'm sanding little bits of excess plastic off of the edges of this model. Okay. Are they performing in the circus, or are they just like circus groupies? And what kind of magical things happen in the circus? It sounds really fun. It sounds pretty cool. Yeah. Roadies. That's kind of an inside joke from our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which you need to be watching. And if you'd been watching it, you would catch the inside joke. It is our Tabaxi Bard, who is currently a badger. There's a story there. Our Tabaxi Bard, who is currently a badger, has these groupies, and anyway, he gets all upset and demands that we refer to them as roadies, not groupies. But we don't. So there. Okay. Banjo Bard is good. Banjo Bard is good. Our Bard recently got an avian companion as well. The avian companion is a disembodied spirit, and it is a gigantic Canada goose. So that's pretty good. But a banjo playing bard is really good. Actually, yeah, my character in our D&D campaign is basically just a stagehand and a guard. So I understand that role. Oh, an SMR. Oh, no. Oh, wow, that's interesting. No doubt unrequited. Okay, those are really cool character types. That's a whole lot more fun than just being like a, the standard half elf and dwarf kind of thing. That's pretty cool. Did you help the party come up with those player types, or did they come up with those and you just worked with them? That's in my warlock too. This is really creative. It's really fun when people do that, the non-standard stuff. A half elf. Those are really cool backstories too. That's really fun. It sounds like that makes it fun to DM because it's so varied and unusual. So what are some features of the circus? Oh, this is another one of those. Occasionally I get this where it pulls away from the mold and it leaves a blot of plastic on the outside. And fortunately, it's not a divot, but it's a wart. It's basically a plastic wart, is what it is, and it can be pretty easily sanded off. But it's really annoying. I had one of them that showed up right in the middle of a fairly obvious piece, where it would be clearly seen. I probably should, yeah. That's going to be under the gold foil, so I'm not too terribly worried about that. Okay, I got one side done. This side, look, you can see the flashing around here where it was just excess plastic on the mold. Okay, well you've got some really cool players then, because they're coming up with, when you come up with non-traditional kind of creative stuff like that can make the campaign a lot of fun, because they probably play that way too then, right? Is that they play in a playful and creative manner, which makes the game a whole whole lot of fun. So you've gotten into it for two sessions now. How is it going? Is everybody having fun doing it? Okay. Yeah, it all comes down to money, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. That sounds like a really hilarious campaign. It's got to be fun DMing that. Yeah, this is pretty boring here. I'm glad you joined chat because otherwise, what I'm doing is I'm just sanding off. I'm sanding down the lack of quality control in the injection molding process of this model. You haven't even played and you're DMing? That is very brave. Congratulations on that. Well, as you do this, especially since you're doing a really creative and clever campaign like that, one thing we've learned, and the D&D purists hate this, of course, but is that sometimes the rules are guidelines. It's like the pirate code in the first Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Pirate code is really more like a set of guidelines. In some ways, that's true. And so it's perfectly fine to sometimes be a little bit creative. And if it makes the gameplay, like if you get in a situation where the rules basically are getting in the way, and sometimes they do, since you're trying to have fun, okay, you're not doing tournament style 100% accurate rules, following absolutely perfect everything. You're trying to have fun. As DM, I think it's okay to take some latitude, not turning the rules on their head kind of thing, but, just little tweaks sometimes. Don't cheat with the dice, though. I mean, don't do that. That's bad. But, especially since you're doing something kind of unconventional anyway, just keep it light and keep it fun and keep it moving. Because you want the players to just keep coming back, from one session to the next, and to have each session be just be fun. How many times have I said that? And since you're in a circus, how could you not have fun, right? That's the whole point. Can't believe I just did that. I know I can kind of tell what I've done already and what not, but anyway, I'll have to go around this whole thing again. Effective clones? Okay. That's even better. So not just clones of a standard character, but defective in some way. We've spent a lot of time in sewers and have run into those kinds of creatures. I've got one. There, the mycelium growing up from the base, turning it into this isn't a friendly thing. Okay. This is obviously, well, not obviously. It looks like it's going to be unfriendly, but you never know. If we ever run into this in our campaign, it might be kind of fun. Well, if you ever want to, here, I'll make a business proposition that we probably can't follow up on. So don't take me seriously, but I'll say it anyway. Is if you want to commission hand painted minifigs for your characters or even some of the NPCs, um, you know, for a reasonable price, because we have to pay for the plastic and the paint and the postage and all of that. Just say that, if you wanted to do that, we might be able to like print them off on the rosin printer or on the printer back there. They're not the highest quality, but they might be fun to have. And then I could paint them live on the stream. I love the names that you come up with. Are you coming up with the names? Well, I'm going to be wrapping up soon here. I'm almost done cleaning up. This was really the other one that I was working on was like one of the best printed pieces of the entire model. This one is really crappy. Just a whole lot of rough edges. And this edge has to meet the other edge. And then there's going to be a seam along here. That's going to be a little bit of a challenge. It's going to be kind of a pain because the other piece cements onto here, and it's going to leave a seam all the way around the outside, but it has all these really important indentations where parts of the landing struts go. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Put this back in the box. If I can get it done one-handed there. And let me pull out my super little saw here and take the rocket nozzle. Yeah, it takes a little while to saw through here, but it really is better than cutting them off with the X-Acto knife. There we go. Yeah, I'm going to sand down the entire outside of this, actually, with the sandpaper, because okay, I am really loving this. Lightly cursed. There's nothing better than lightly cursed, especially, if you advertise them as lightly cursed, but you don't tell anybody what the curse is until it happens. It's like a grab bag, right? Where you just get this bag and you don't know what's in it. Tulip and poppy, very clever. I like that. Yeah, lightly cursed. We might. Might steal that. We're going to steal that. So does the curse just sort of happen at some point, or do they have to like activate the item somehow? Okay, I'm going to not do this because it's getting late in the stream, and this rocket nozzle is important. And if I mess it up, then it's messed up. So I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to put that away. There, I did something not messing up. That was kind of unusual. On Monday, I will be back at more or less 10, working on this again, the Sun stage, and having gotten the windows on. Okay, that's pretty cool. Oh, I like that. Yeah. So it's detect thoughts, and all of a sudden in your head, you've got all these things that are quite unwelcome. Okay, you are having great fun with this. Congratulations. You are putting together a really, really cool campaign. I hope your players appreciate what you're doing. I'm going to wrap up, though. On Monday, now that I've installed Windows in here and they haven't fallen out yet, the most important thing I can do is mask the windows. So that's one of the things I'll be working on for who knows how long, because I need to get the corners all really tightly and carefully masked. And they need to be masked because there are going to be several layers of spray paint, a primer, and then a metallic paint on top of that. And then probably more than one coat of that metallic paint. And then, well, after the windows are masked, I'm going to cement this guy very, very firmly into the lem, okay, so it doesn't fall out later, and you can kind of see it, through the window. And then these two will be cemented together, and on Wednesday, I'll be cleaning up the seam and then starting the painting process. So the most critical thing is getting the windows masked. And I am testing the masking tape. This is the masking tape I'm going to be using. I'm testing this and letting it sit over the weekend to make sure that it doesn't mar the surface of the window by leaving like uncleanable residue on it or something. So I don't know how long it's going to take. It's just going to be a lot of little futzy stuff getting the masking tape into the corners. And then once that's done, what's going on here? I don't know. It looks like there's a flaw, but who can tell? Once that's done and those are cemented together, I'll probably work a little bit on the standing on the moon astronaut. Ah, nice. Yeah, it's nice to have a table that you can use like a D100 with or something. Our DM makes up some of her own tables, which is just a huge lot of work, but it sounds pretty cool. Yeah, and then cement those together and then paint them. And either Friday or a week from Monday, I'll be finishing the ascent module and then beginning to work on the descent module. And in the meantime, this just gets covered up. And if I can remember over the weekend and if I have time, I'm going to clean up down here. I'm going to get a new piece of cardboard. That's pretty exciting, huh? A new piece of cardboard and get some of the surface area around here opened up so that I can actually move around and do things. So thanks everybody for joining in today. I appreciate it. Apologize again for being kicked off the internet on Wednesday. It didn't happen today. That's really good. Okay. Well, yeah, think about that and get back to it. I can't make promises because I'm not the one who actually has to do the designing and molding and stuff. But, since you've been a really good follower and it's really appreciated. So maybe, and it might actually be kind of fun to do something for somebody who's playing Dungeons and Dragons, just to show off what's possible on this stream and, to say thank you. So anyway, we'll talk about that some. Who maybe you can get in touch with our DM, and we'll take a look at what could be done. Again, I can't make any promises, but it might be kind of a fun little promo thing and a thank you thing for us to do. If you have not already, please become a follower. If you are a follower, stay follower. If you go onto Twitch, I think you can become a subscriber. Some people have done that, and that's really appreciated as well. Tell all of your friends and family, enemies, and acquaintances to join us in our Dungeons and Dragons campaign and in this painting stream. And I won't talk about patreon.com/Dice and Dungeons. You can go there and become a patron. It's time to wrap up. Thanks, everybody. And I will be back. Thank you. I will be back on Monday, more or less 10, assuming everything keeps going. See you then.